Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 374, featuring Matteo Santoro, an amazing person who I had the pleasure of meeting when I went to NFT LA. He was on a panel there, and it was really cool. I exchanged some information with him and then figured out, if he could be on the podcast, and he came on and really got to dig deep into what this guy's doing, because he is basically a filmmaker, or came from visual effects and is a filmmaker, and decided to create his own content by becoming completely self-sustained and self-funding his own creative projects by the sale of his NFTs, and it has completely opened up the world to him in a lot of ways. Now, there's a lot of projects out there that use NFTs that are doing things, and this is definitely a special one, and I think it's very relatable towards the kind of things that we do, especially if you're a visual effects person and you want to make your own content. So I absolutely love this guy. The amount of just sheer joy and passion that I got by the end of this podcast, I wanted to go over and give him a hug, even though we were on different sides of a screen, because it was just so inspiring to hear what this guy was saying. So Kristen, what did you think of Matteo?
Yeah, well, like you said, passion, you walk away with this, you love it. And so he actually came to LA with like $500 in an air mattress. And he kind of just started off doing opening title credits. That's how he got into VFX. And he's actually worked on like lots of films, 300, Avatar, Alien versus Predator. And now, as you said, he's creating narrative driven NFTs. So with meaning, and he's calling it like the soul drive concept. That he's putting in these narratives, and the SIFT NFT, and that's out now. It's animation of this practical, I think it was an 8-foot robot that he built himself. And it's all set in a dystopian future with like a Western feel. So he really goes into explaining that. And this, the other project is the Sunflower Kid NFT series, which is wonderful. It's a series which all the proceeds go to Magna Medical Aid, which is a medical humanitarian organization that is actively providing assistance to children and their families affected by the war in Ukraine. So he's such a great person. It's the whole podcast. You learn a lot. So
Absolutely. And I absolutely love the Sunflower Kid series. All of this is great. The SIFT stuff he's doing, everything else. But when he started talking about the Sunflower Kid stuff and the power that kid has, he's basically invented a new type of superhero. It's a superhero with a backstory and all this stuff, the Sunflower Kid. And the images are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And what he's doing with this. And not only is he doing this thing where he's specifically helping up this specific humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, but he's also even thinking about where Sunflower Kid goes next for the next humanitarian crisis. So let's say there's an earthquake or some other natural disaster that happens somewhere and that needs place. Sunflower Kid can go to that location and raise money to help those causes. And I just think he's an amazing person. I was really, really impressed with Matteo, and I'm really glad to see what he's doing. And I think you guys should follow him. Because I certainly will be doing that for a while. So really awesome to see that. And it was something really cool to, discover at NFTLA of all places. So really great to see that. Okay. We have a couple of announcements. Kristen, what's going on?
Yeah, so you can find these out at chaos.com/events. Coming up on May 18th, we have the Chaos Vantage live webinar. So you can join Chaos's Simeon and a 3D artist, Andrea Pedrati, who's the creator of Spectrum, and they'll talk about cars, craft, and creativity with Chaos Vantage. Again, chaos.com/events, and you can log on and sign up for that.
And again, that's on May 18th. So that's coming up real soon. So make sure and register soon so you can get onto that webinar. We don't have any specific announcements or product announcements just yet, but if people want to know more about the podcast, Kristen, where can they go?
You can go to facebook.com/CG Garage Podcast or chaos.com/CG Garage. And if you'd like to watch us, go to youtube.com/Chaos Group TV.
Perfect. And if you have any ideas of other podcasts, or you want to comment on this one, or you want to tell us anything, just don't forget to email us. labs@chaos.com is our email. Again, that is labs@chaos.com. And we would love to hear from you. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating there. And enjoy enjoy all the things that this podcast has to offer. I'm like, God, Kristen, it's been going on for a long time. Every time I look back at this, it's like, oh,
I know.
It's going to be in November. I think it's going to be 8 years that this podcast is going on. So I know. Anyway, but for now, please enjoy episode number 374 with Matteo Santoro.
Welcome to another CG garage where the chaos group talks. You'll know it's over when the last bucket drops. We're gonna fire off rays in high dynamic range. We know that ambient occlusion is passe. Global illumination won't lead you astray. And while image-based lighting is really swell, you need to make sure everything has Fresnel.
It's all good. It's all good. It was really cool seeing you at NFTLA, obviously, and it was exciting to figure out what you guys are doing. The only problem I had is that all of the there were all panels and they were really fast, and we didn't get to see enough of it. Like I really want to see more of what you're doing. So that's why I was like, well, I'll just have them on the podcast and then I'll get to find out more about what's going on.
Have you had time to check out the trailers and all the materials?
I did.
Excellent.
I did. But I want you, obviously, I want, let my audience get more excited about it. So I want to give them more details, and so that you can tell them what's going on. But let's start with your background. Obviously, you've been, you've got a background in visual effects as well, and all of that. So what got you into the movies and wanted to get involved in doing CG? Like, what was the thing that sort of inspired you there?
Well, look, it's like I've been an artist since day one, really, and it's like when I was a kid, it was like, where am I going to go to college? Obviously, went to art school. I ended up going to RISD. It's kind of just the language I know how to speak in a weird way. I just the other part of the other world just didn't make sense to me, and then I just been on that path, that creative path of trying to just constantly do what like kind of speaks to me, and after I graduated from RISD, I ended up coming out to LA in like 2005, and I worked. I literally came out with like $500 in an air mattress type of situation too.
Yep, you're not the only one.
And it was just like I just have my reel, you know what I mean? I had like an animation reel, and like I just from there was just like try to get a job, you know what I mean? Like got to get the rent, and I wanted to get into doing. Opening title credit sequences because I love that stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like the beginning of opening titles to Seven. And as like a typographer, like I just loved type and motion. And so my heart was like really leaning in that direction. It's this kind of cool bridge between like design and like video. And so you get to really experiment. And like, I was really inspired by like Kyle Cooper's work. He did like I said, and so I ended up coming up to LA, and I got this job actually doing an opening title credit sequence for this, one of my first jobs, like for this reality show called Brat Camp. And so that was the one that kind of kicked it all off. And then from there, I was just kind of, hooked in the visual effects world, and you just kind of learn, bounce around. And like, I ended up going to this place called Hydraulics for a while. And that was just like, at that point, I couldn't really define like what my position was as far as like what I wanted to focus on. I just loved doing it all. So it just turned it into like a, like problem solving, kind of putting on fires, whether it's like 3D, trying to do some animation stuff over here. Just, you know what I mean? Just kind of like bouncing around from job to job because I don't know. And learning, there's like a lot of learning that happens like early on in your career as a VFX artist, just seeing how production, all the different decisions and everything. Anyway, so then from there, you still follow me on this path. All right. And then from there it was, so after that, it was like, okay, I've been working on other people's dreams, and you get to that point where like, what are your dreams? And you start to ask yourself that question as an artist. It's like, I love and respect like all the projects I worked on, just so many like amazing lessons that came out of that stuff. And then it's like, okay, so now what? What's the next step? And so I ended up building this kind of sci-fi world called Offline. It was like this, I don't know, I'll post a link to it, but a long time ago was like my first kind of go at getting behind the camera and being like a director. But because I had my ability as like a visual effects artist, I can like shoot stuff, but then like make it just look big without having to wait for like a studio or any kind of budget. You know what I mean? So I know that
Sure.
I have that ability. So I can just make my own stuff. And I've like, so I put this thing online. It was like some sci-fi thing. And then that's where I kind of just like, got some introduction into the kind of the Hollywood system at that point, right? Because it went viral at the time, and it was just like this like moment where you're, interviewing with studios, and it's that real exciting fire of like, whoa, am I going to get to make a movie out of this? And, that kind of thing. And it was just like, you get that taste of, the kind of people like being into the idea.
What year was this?
Man, I don't even know. You got to look up Offline and then Santoro, and it's way back there.
Okay.
But, I built the thing like basically in my garage. It was just like, at night getting, some friends together, putting together costumes, and it's just that like that thing you got to do. If you want to do it, you just got to, do it. So it's just like this post-apocalyptic futuristic thing, like kind of all the, types of imagery that I'm generally attracted to. Anyway, so from there was, I put that out, and I ended up getting this opportunity to direct a web series from that, and it was for this. And I had to come up with an idea for it. And it was like, we're basically going to take the web. I told them specifically, I wanted to take the web series, and instead of doing a web series, we're going to turn it into a feature. If we can do that, I'm into it, right? Like, let's make a movie. But we had like not that much money. I think it was like, I don't know, a couple $100,000 or whatever. And I just had a real big dream for this thing. And it's called Higher Power. And so I ended up directing that, but I would kind of put myself into this position because there were so many visual effects in the script when I wrote it that I needed to get them done, right? So that took me like a really long time. I ended up working on that thing for, I don't know, like 4 years until we ended up raising enough money to get it over the finish line. But, it got distribution, got picked up by Magnolia Films. It's like,
that's awesome.
Just kind of like, it was one of those things where I just wanted to, I don't know, I just went for it. And now, and so it was an exciting learning process. And like, I think going through that process of needing to do all those visual effects for that project specifically was like, I kind of was just been sharpening the sword for like the metaverse space right now, which is like, you know what I mean? Like, this is where I think I've just been kind of building my skill set to like, I love the playground of what Web3 has to offer. And so like my next big idea, I was going to do this thing for this thing SIFT, which is kind of, my Star Wars. It's this world building project.
Right.
And so, but when you have like your own original IP, when you pitch it to a studio, it's really good to go at them with like fireworks, So I wanted to shoot a trailer for it so that I can take it out and try to get funding and kind of take that studio route, right?
Sure.
So before COVID, I ended up, well, actually during COVID, I started just writing, right? It was just like, just got into the story. And then I started building. I was like, I want to shoot this thing, but I want practical elements. And I ended up like, kind of building this robot that's like 8 feet tall. I'm going to show you some pictures of it. And it took me like months too. It was like, it's all like articulate, like the arms move and everything. And, we just kind of made it so it's like kind of can puppeteer it. My buddy Bruce, shout out to Bruce out there, Mitchell. He was with Legacy Visual Effects. That's how we met.
Yeah,
right?
Legacy, yeah.
Yeah, and he worked on like Iron Man, and he like helped me kind of put the structure together because he saw my vision. That guy's awesome. So shout out to Bruce. Anyway, so we made this skeleton and we put this robot together. But when people started seeing the robot, like all my friends and stuff that I've amassed through production, like my buddy Dallas Sterling is just like always down to like, shoot up, fun stuff. And he's there for the story. And like, so I showed him the robot. I started building costumes. And then next thing you know, we're like out in the desert, like shooting this sci-fi adventure thing. And I'm like, I make the trailer. And at that point, after the trailer was made, it was like, all right, well, I guess I could take this studio route, but this thing feels kind of special. Like, I don't know, like, I'm like, is it just a pitch or is it like, maybe, I put something into this, like, and then I started looking at the NFT space. And the thing that really attracted me about it is that it's kind of like this playground of strange, weird opportunity. And like, the rules are just getting like put into place as people are going. Right. And so it's like, maybe there's a route here where I take SIFT and kind of build a fan base around the, around the property, but like through the metaverse. But what the ultimate goal is like getting the movie made, but kind of getting the movie made in like an experimental way. And so like, there's this version of like, where there's this version of the situation where like, there's like kind of an economy around, development, right? Because I talked about this during the talk where, as like working in visual effects, there's so much that goes into the development of like Star Wars. It's like, how many helmets of Darth Vader did they go through? And these drawings, like all of those drawings, first of all, are fucking badass too. Like all of them, like all the concept work is just so rad. I'm sorry, I swore I didn't.
It's okay. You can say whatever you want, man.
All right, cool. I didn't know, like, okay, sorry about that. So anyways, all the concept work is so badass. And then what happens to all that stuff after the movies gets made? It just turns into like maybe a coffee table book. You know what I mean? But now there's like this opportunity where like you can kind of share that stuff early with people who are really like hardcore fans and get them like a little bit involved with the creative process, which is kind of interesting, right? It's like,
right.
It kind of crosses that bridge between like the relationship that creatives have with their fans. It's like, is because this thing is for that, for them, and like back and forth. There's this cool synergy that can occur, and it's inspiring. And so like right now it's like, I'm in that place where I'm starting to feel it kind of paying off, and it's really exciting. And like, I'm having a lot of fun with the IP, and all I just want to do is just continue to build and all the people who have kind of, have been like in the SIFT army from day one too. It's like, I all feel their energy, and it's so cool. Like that Young, I don't know if you know Young from the Young content show. That guy's amazing. You guys should have a conversation. And
yeah,
my girl, Lady Phoenix, who's just a really inspiring human being. And, everybody out there is just like, there is a community thing here that I'm really attracted to as well.
For sure. For sure. Now it's interesting. So, I've had many before the NFT, extravaganza has gone on. I had many conversations with friends, and I've had them on this podcast as well, because this podcast has been around for a long time. But just about that specific idea, you make something cool, you put a short out there, you hope it goes viral. Hopefully it gets someone's attention at some agency or at a studio. And then you go on what they call the water bottle tour of Los Angeles, where you go from conference room to conference room trying to pitch your idea. And hopefully someone picks it up or greenlights it or whatever and gets caught in development hell. And it's just a nightmare, right? Yeah, totally. And a lot of times, it sounds exciting, but it's not. It's a huge amount of work, and it doesn't even guarantee it's going to happen. But that is a challenging thing. And it sounds like you went through a little bit of that when you did your other short, right? When you did Offline. Did you go?
Yeah. It's a roller coaster too, because, you're playing with dreams, right? You're like, oh my God, I get to make this thing into you know what I mean? So you got to kind of like control the expectation, because it's like goes up and down, and there's a thing, and this guy's attached, and they're excited, and it's just like, it's that within itself is definitely, but, you got to go through it though. That's the process, right? You got to kind of like, there's definitely a fight to get these things to come to life. And that's the name of the game, really. And so I'm just kind of looking at it through the lens of the metaverse.
Right. Well, I think what's interesting now is obviously, this is the refrain that was being said over and over again at NFTLA. And I think you were definitely one of these people, is that you don't want to go through the middlemen anymore. You don't want some gatekeeper to tell you what you can make and can't make, or fund you and can't fund you. So you really see, like if you have enough people in an audience, right, that can basically champion what you're doing,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
that will work. So how did you do it? Like basically when you did SIFT, like what's the list? You're giving someone advice. You can say, all right, I got some ideas or whatever. It's like, well,
Yeah.
how did you do SIFT, and how did to sort of get people an idea of what's the best process of setting this up for the way that you're doing it?
How did I do SIFT? I just
like in terms of making it into a Web3 space. Like, what's the transition? Like, okay, here's what I had to do. I had to make a bunch of this. I had to
I mean, look, I just made a thing, right? I guess that's what it kind of takes.
Right.
You got to just like, if you want to be in the NFT space, that's the beauty of it. It's like anybody can really dig deep. You don't even have like some people just have never considered themselves even artists before, or digging deep and being like, hey, am I creative in this strange way? And
right.
There's like AI stuff, and it's like, so my first advice would be just to like whatever it is that you're trying to make, whether it's SIFT or some generative butterfly experiment thing, like do it.
Sure.
What I mean? Like just do it. Number one, like just do it and kind of like figure out how to execute it. And if people if you need something from somebody, or you think you need something from somebody, but you can't get the thing done because that person's not there, don't wait for that person. Like figure out how to make it work and just to keep moving with the
Okay.
idea, see it through. Like that's the number one thing. It's like, because the kind of like path of trying to execute anything, right? You just gotta, it's at times just treacherous, and you don't want to do it at all. Like you just, you know what I mean? And then like, if it's not being well received, or like, and your ego and blah, and it's just like this kind of like barrage of kind of mental obstacles that you have to kind of overcome. And then, you just stay focused on like execution. Like I just want this world to come to life, and I like really believe in it, and I feel driven to do it. And I feel, actually kind of, I feel like this whole Web3 thing is really actually kind of special. Like outside of just the fact that people are like selling cool images, there's this underlying like beauty behind the fact that like there's more people are just becoming artists, like from a collective, standpoint. Like there's like an influx of creativity, like just through the collective consciousness energetically, right? So it's like, I like that. I feel like it's kind of pushing things in the right direction, because we're just, we're in a time where, there's a lot of conflict. So like, yes, creativity, let's go. All of us, let's go. I don't know what stories you want to tell, but just tell them. Don't wait. Just go.
So tell us a little bit about the world. Tell us a little bit about SIFT. Like, what's that world about, and how does it,
All right. All right. So SIFT is, it takes place 200 years after the last war, known as the Old War.
Okay.
You want to get nerdy?
Yeah, let's get nerdy, man.
All right. And so like the last war, all of Earth's remaining superpowers, they were fighting over what little resources were left, right? But they were using like Boston Dynamics, like weaponry to defend themselves, right? And so, because everything was just so effed up at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then cut to 200 years later, and the world is kind of laid to waste after the old war, but there are still these kind of broken machines that wander the wasteland. And the people who survive, they survive for a reason, because they're kind of survivor, because they're like built for this kind of land, right? And they become like there's like almost like a de-evolution process that happens, but also an evolutionary process that happens, because they become really, the people who have survived in this world become like accustomed to the ways of technology. Is technology actually what keeps them alive, right? So it's like, and a lot of those people like this, like my main character's name's Colton Grass, right? And he's a dirt sifter, and he goes around and he like scavenges for energy, like sources of energy, things like you can like battery parts and things like that. So out in the world of SIFT, there's this other underlining concept known as the Soul Drive network. And so are you still following me? Because it's
I'm still following you.
Okay. So like in the Soul Drive network, there's this, cryogenics, cryogenics. Yeah. So this isn't cryogenics, but like Ray Kurzweil, he had this idea, it's a form of it, but Ray Kurzweil had this idea about the singularity guy, right? He had this idea about uploading your consciousness to
Yes.
after you die, right, to a network. And so, at the very end of the old war, 200 years ago, like the people who could afford it, they uploaded their consciousnesses to this network that would stay alive and promised them heaven, because it's basically like a metaverse where you're just photoshopping the entire world, but you're just alive in this perpetual nirvana. Even though your body's gone, your consciousness is basically in this matrix. You know what I mean? And that matrix is it's called Ra Tech. That's the name of the corporation, Ra Tech. Like the Egyptian sun god is Ra, right? And they have this whole advanced solar technology. I'm going to actually introduce solar as like a big component to this. I like kind of experimenting with that visually, like one of those. Anyway, so that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So Ra Tech, they developed this metaverse space. Now cut to 200 years, of these. I gotta back up. So after Ra Tech develops the metaverse space, they end up kind of creating these like facilities that are underground, these bunkers that hold the consciousnesses alive. You know what I mean? And those consciousnesses are heavily fortified and also guarded by the tombstones. So there's these kind of like saved souls underground, and up on top of them are the tombstone robots, which I have the drop that I did right now. So I'm building all of the kind of NFT components into the actual narrative of the story. Of the story. Anyway, so Colton, I don't want to ruin it all, but it kind of I don't want to ruin it all, but Colton, like, he ends up coming across one of these soul drive networks, and it's like he finds basically a world underground of like like almost like the story of a city in a bottle kind of a situation, right? Like
that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Mad Max lands into Ready Player One.
Yeah, totally. Look, I'm totally like, yeah. I love that. Yeah. Look, I feel like it's actually all my favorite things.
Sure.
Sorry, that's Ra. That's Ra, by the way. Ra.
There's Ra. Yeah. Hey.
Ra, she's, that Ra Tech is the name of the corporation, but I named her after Ra. She's kind of a
little sundog.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a lot of like geeky world building stuff.
Yeah.
And, I'm just excited to explore this entire thing with the fans and kind of just build it out. And like right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm in the process of bringing this thing to life, and I have a pretty solid roadmap of where I want to take it right now. And it's just a matter of execution. So I'm putting my head down, and I'm in front of the computer just doing, C4D and I'm working on X particles now. I got the new update with the plants, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So anyways, yeah.
Well, that's really cool. So, obviously, like you said, it sounds like it was as you're going along, you're sort of making these things, and it's like, well, this is a part of something, but I'm going to, I think my fans would like it, so I'm going to sell it as an NFT as well. Or you took your 100 Tombstone project and you sort of made a project out of that, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. There's the utility behind the Tombstone project. I'm actually going to release this tomorrow, so I'm going to give everybody a heads up now in a way.
Yeah.
But I'm doing this thing called the Concept Lab, and I'm going to have 3 versions of the main bad guy. His name's Flint.
Okay.
And anybody who has a tombstone now gets to be a part of the discussion of like how Flint looks, and like we get to kind of choose which of the 3 we use for the movie. So it's like kind of like this cool moment in which like I'm kind of crossing the bridge between, like I said, fans and the content that they like love so much. And so like if you're a hardcore enough SIFT guy and you want to get one of these tombstones, then you get to be on that conversation. And where that conversation goes, I don't know, but it's going to be exciting and fun, and and that's what I can at least promise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you mentioned the community, which I think is a great thing we should discuss. I mean, obviously, that was one of the big things that everyone's been saying in Web3 world. It's all about the community, right? Which is great.
Yeah.
But I think what's challenging right now with people is like, if you have a great idea, you may not necessarily be very good at finding your community and finding your people. What is the process that allowed you to get people to see all the cool things you're doing and get the
Well, you
attention
know what?
that you're getting?
You know what? That is a job within itself. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it's not one that I paid much attention to for a while. You know, it's like I just had my head down, focused on work, and there's just like the whole I think what you're talking about is just hype, like the hype machine, right? How
Or just getting anyone to pay it, see you.
You just make your stuff as cool as it can be and get it out there and hope that people like it. You know, like that's what I'm trying to do. It's like I'm still being like, hey, you know, like that's kind of what's so beautiful as well about the NFT space and also about Web3 is that it's kind of this like level playing field of do or don't do.
Right.
And so it's like kind of just be active in it in whatever way you think you can be. And then like, if you are in 5 years when this whole thing actually does kind of like turn into Web 5 or whatever, you're going to kind of thank yourself because I think there's a shift outside of just like the art, you know, the artist space, but I don't know, but I think there's a lot of cool opportunities in this space outside of just entertainment, like with humanitarian work too. Like I got some of that going on right now, like some really amazing projects that like are like the Sunflower Kid thing I did. Like that was,
tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah. So like in the middle of SIFT, like when the war just erupted, I'm about to release Tombstones. It's like, it just didn't feel like in alignment with like that kind of the spirit of things. Like right now, I don't want to see that like imagery. You know what I mean? Like obviously I feel like, you know, there are like war undertones there, you know what I mean? But that's part of storytelling. I understand. But like
sure.
At the same time, you have to kind of like weigh when you want like that kind of thing to be out there, regardless of, you know, how important you might think it is to you or whatever. Right. So I just put a big hold on it. And I just felt really inspired now because of I guess like how I can reach a certain audience with my work. And I saw a situation happening over in Russia and it just felt really just wrong on so many levels, right? There's just so like, you're like, and then I know war happens all the time but it's like, I've never been in a position too, where like, you know, if I cannot, you know, like where I could actually do something actively. Right. And so, you know, like, I guess I could put a lot of the inspiration for the project to like what happened when, they made like Captain America during World War II. Right. And they had that, you know, that famous shot of him punching the Hitler in the face. You know what I mean? That whole thing, like a lot of that imagery, like comic book imagery was born out of like, a lot of it was out of like war and conflict to just like give people hope, like they're symbols, right? Like, the heroes, right? Joseph Campbell kind of titans of the world, or like it's Superman and Aquaman and, you know, and then I love comic book characters because of like how they are like, you know, represented in our society now. They are in a weird way, like they're going to be like future gods in a weird way. Right.
Sure.
Because they're all part of storytelling. And anyway, so, I saw like when this happened with, you know, in Ukraine, like I was like, I'm going to do a series. And I was like, at first I was like, I'm going to do Sunflower Man. Like initially it was like, you know, and I'm going to have him like stopping war. And it's like, but then it was like, no, that's not the approach. Like you know, it's not about like, you know, the you know, approaching war with like conflict. It's about like, you know, there's this like, there's this child behind it, you know, and he's like, what his power is that he can just shoot a lot of sunflowers and like clog up things. And you know what I mean? And he flies and he just kind of represents peace. And like, you know, little kids, like they're the victims to these wars, because war is, at the end of the day, it's an adult problem, right? It's like the reason why, you know what I mean? It's not their fight. Like what, they don't want to be there. They want to be in a fucking sandbox. Like it's right. You know, like what are you guys doing? You idiots. Right. And so, you know what I mean? And so, that's why I made him just like this like kid. And I actually have a whole backstory about him too that's really cool that I want to expand upon. But I'm actually gonna now that we did so anyway. So I made him into this series, and I was gonna donate 100% to UNICEF, but I had a conversation with a friend of mine who said that there was this like other foundation called Magna, and they were like on the ground, so like just like one of those people who they get hired by other bigger corporations. They hire these guys to kind of get the job done. So they're just like a badass like group of nurses and doctors who are like in the war, like running up to people with Tupperware, trying to keep people alive, like that stuff, right? Like they're in the thick of it, right? And so I wanted to find like a foundation like that. That's something. And so I ended up getting connected with Magna. And I mean, as I'm talking to her, like that stuff's happening outside, which is pretty crazy, And so it's like, I was like, I'm just going to make this NFT series. I have no idea if it's going to do anything, but I'm just going to, if it does, you guys can have all of it. And that's that. Like you're on the field. What you need is supplies. Let's go,
Right. And
so I did this like series, and she was just like, I love how you're just kind of getting it done, because that's what it felt like. It's just like in times like that, sometimes, it requires that, you just got to get the stuff to the people and save their asses. Like get them out of there. You know what I mean? Like, why is there so much talk about it? I can't believe we're even in a war right now. It's like, it's crazy to me. You feel like human beings should be more evolved than that. It's crazy. And so Sunflower Kid, like he did a good job, and he actually sold, and I got the money to them, and it was like cool to see them like actually they had supplies, like more supplies. I'm like, wow, like that's act like an example of art, like actively like kind of making a difference in that, in Web3, and like that a lot of that is happening. Like a lot of that is happening, and it's like that is awesome to me. That like makes me want to be on this team, right? Like I've never been in this situation where I could do that. So with Sunflower Kid, I've decided to kind of expand upon him, where it's not like, I don't want to keep it like he's not just like in Ukraine, right? You know what I mean? So like there's this version of it where, for example, there's an earthquake that happens somewhere else, and like God forbid that happen, right? But if it does happen, I can, now that I have Sunflower Kid, I'm just going to have him go to like places where he's really needed, and then find some like foundation that's like on the ground, and keep that really fluid and open. So there's no like, you know what I mean? Just like, I don't have to like stay with one foundation. So technically he's a superhero, right? Like he's an actual real life superhero now, which is cool. It's an NFT superhero. And like I'm actually kind of dedicated to keeping his like, like what he represents alive. And so like, as I move forward with Sunflower Kid, it's like, I think it's going to be, I don't know, interesting to see where it goes.
That's such a great, amazing idea, especially to make him so dynamic and so present in terms of the exact situation that he's needed, right? So like a flood or a tsunami or whatever, and he's going to be on the ground, and you'd be represented by that. And so that's such an amazing idea.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Really
I got to make a whole nerdy story behind it if you want to hear
it. Sure.
I mean, it's not, it's kind of, because I actually would love to see it. Like, I love the idea. I want to see it turn into a movie. Like, that always kind of happens to me. Like, I feel like movies are the, like that's the ultimate kind of space for me, is like when people sit down and they kind of take in your thing, and, it's like this total connection between you and audience. And like, you get to be kind of this architect of the world. And so like whenever I try to develop something, I love to have like, that story inside there. And, Sunflower Kid, actually, I one day want to turn into a movie, but like I just have this vision of this boy who's on a mission to stop all wars. Like, so you just, you know what I mean? He's like, it's just this kid. And he like goes on this mission, and there's these other kids that are also a part of his team. I mean, I don't want to get into all of them just yet, but the backstory is that he's a soldier fighting in Ukraine and then there's Chernobyl happening. And how in Chernobyl, how there's like all the toxic radioactive environment and everything. So there's this in Sunflower Kid, the story, there's this really close to Chernobyl. There's a toxic sunflower field that's like all kind of mutated, and You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
so there's this guy, he's a soldier, he ends up getting shot in like the shoulder, whatever it is, passes out in the field. And then, he wakes up in the morning as a little boy, and he doesn't remember anything. And then he gets rescued by like this Ukrainian family. And then like, the story kind of continues from there. And he discovers that he has this ability to kind of like, it starts with seeds coming out of him. And like, he just has this sunflower power that like, and he can also fly. And then he just like doesn't understand why war exists and goes on a mission to stop it all. And it's a boy versus like the world.
I was just looking at your Sunflower Kid NFTs as you were talking about it. So it was kind of awesome to hear you talk about it and then to look at it at the same time. So they're really cool. And I think it's such an amazing story, and I was listening to, I don't know if you saw Colton Underwood talk at NFTLA. He was really good, but one of the things he said was, and he's like, what is one of your favorite things with NFTs? And he said, I love buying NFTs from amazing artists from third world countries because you can buy one NFT and it can completely change their lives, And it was one thing that he mentioned. It was like, this is so interesting that space, what you can do with it and how much good can happen in there. You know?
There's so much. It's totally true. It's actually really incredible. And so like right now, admittedly, there's some things that need to get worked out about Web3 and the technology behind it. Yeah. But I would say that like the missions that artists are on and people who have good hearts and good intentions, like, they have this kind of weird, new avenue to kind of help and give back in strange and beautiful ways that, that didn't exist before. And like, there's even the way that crypto is getting into Ukraine and, doing a good job there and kind of like, it's cool. It's cool to see that happen. It's like, I like when people get along, it's
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about, some of those concerns? So let's get into that a little bit. I mean, obviously there's a lot of concerns about the environmental impact of mining and minting things. Like what do you think is how do you address that? What's your way of looking at that? I think
it's this. It's like literally, like I said, what I'm doing right now, I'm actually working with some folks on a project, another project for the Kogi tribe. And it's this thing called the Spiral Tree Series, like they're a spiriel, right? And I had a conversation with the leader of the Kogi people, and he told me about his, the message that he wants to get across to humanity because we're out of balance with nature, and so I'm doing this NFT series for them to kind of bridge that gap so that they can spread their message to the world. And the utility behind it is that like you actually help them to rebuild a temple that was kind of I think it was destroyed like 600 years ago. But as far as a utility goes, to be involved in bringing this kind of sacred temple to people, and then allowing them to kind of have more of a platform to say how they feel about the world and the environment, because if anybody knows anything about like how to keep balance, it's these types of people, you know what I mean? And so it's like, so how do you address it? You just have to be, as an artist, I think it's kind of your responsibility to be like actively, at least if you wanted to, like actively trying to get involved with energy conservation projects, like plug the, like, you know what I mean? Plug the dam in the opposite direction and just push. And because that's what we have to do right now. You know what I mean? I think that is where the test lies. Let's just do a lot of awesome, good things for this world and kind of, change some things, so that's where I'm at.
Sure. And I'm just introduce a couple terms which some of my audience may not know NFT terms. You and I know what a rug pull is, but someone may not actually know what a rug pull is. And a rug pull basically is if someone comes up with a big NFT project and they have a roadmap in front of them of all the things they're going to do, but then they get the money from the NFTs, but then they never actually execute. Now they could do that because they never had the ability to execute, or they messed up, or because they're just basically scammed you and took the money and run. Right. So those are the sort of scams a lot of people are concerned about. But obviously that when scams like that happen, it affects the people that are trying to do good. and trying to make NFT the trust.
Well, you know what? I think it's the transparency factor of this whole game is gonna fix that, right? That's gonna be the solution of it. I feel like through time we're gonna like figure it out and legit. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean that's, my other point is, you got to beware of nefarious fools because there's a lot of them out there. And I've been, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people too out there who are like that middleman situation who are trying to kind of make themselves important in certain ways. And I think as long as you're feeding the art, like, yes, get there. But like, if you're not, and you're kind of taking away from that, or you're like, you gotta dig deep and find that creative spark in yourself. And so like when the rug pulling guys come around, like we know where you're at, like, fuck you, asshole. What the hell? Right. And then like, how do we improve that? I mean, I'm sure there's ways to like ensure the audience that like, you got to help, you know what I mean? There's gotta be ways to ensure the audience that that's not going to take place, and what I can promise right now is that, my promise to you is actually just coming from the heart. Like I'm here to bring SIFT to life. I want Sunflower Kid to come to life. Like that's my contract, like I'm excited about this space, and I'm just trying to like, create and give back as much as I can. Cause it's like a really cool opportunity for everyone to, you can kind of do the same.
What do you think about, obviously, as you know, I've been around, you've made movies and I've made movies too. And just the idea of like, okay, it's a studio, option's a thing, and they make the movie and then they go to distributors and it goes into the theater system and then the rentals and all that. That's obviously not how you're going to operate, right? You're going to make SIFT and you're just going to make it and have your fans be part of it. Right?
That's how I started.
Yeah.
That's how I started. But don't get me wrong. I have been having conversations with other producers to like get this thing over the finish line right too.
So are you looking at a theatrical release of this?
Yes,
okay.
That's the goal. Yeah, that's the.
So you're looking to someone to buy this from you after you've already produced it, right?
Yeah. So the goal is to get this thing over the finish line. And what the finish line is to me is SIFT the movie. Like I want that. And how that comes together is like, there's a lot of conversations that I'm having, and some of them are really exciting. And so like, I can also tell you that like, there's, right. I have been a one-man army for a really long time. It's like, it would be nice to, it's good to have like other people who are excited about things and want to get involved and help kind of build something creatively. So
got it.
That's where I'm at.
So this is interesting because obviously a lot of times when people would go to try to make a movie, they'd show up with the script and then the studio would fund the production of what they're doing. And then you would produce it, but you're going to produce the whole thing. And then they're just going to have to buy it from you as opposed to you optioning it or doing anything of that nature, which is kind of cool.
I don't even know. I haven't even thought about that.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting.
I'm making the thing.
Yeah. So. But here's the thing that well, you know what? Maybe just, I don't want to sound bad, but just maybe you being naive of saying, wait, I can just make it myself. Why don't I just make it myself? Yeah. That's a really cool thing because what's happened in Hollywood at this point, especially speaking of middlemen, they all take a cut of a percentage of the growth of the thing, of the production or the making, whatever. So it's incentive for them for the budget to be really high because then they get a bigger cut.
Right.
So
we're getting shifty is what you're saying.
Yeah. So by you just going behind the whole system and saying, I'll just make it myself. And then they're like, oh, well, we got a great film. All we got to do is pay this guy to have it. Then it's a really good deal.
It's one of those things. Like, I feel like just with movies, it's like, if the opportunities are there and they're right, and I'm going to have the ability to get behind that fucking camera and make this world come to life. It's like, that's whatever, like, I just want to, you know what I mean? How I get there is, right. All I know is that right now the world is coming to life somehow. Right. And so like how I get there is just by continuing to keep my head down in the station and just keep building SIFT and I'm behind the controls and it'd be nice to get some battery power, we need a little,
sure.
And you know what I mean? And then this just kind of make this awesome world people can, and then spin-off stories too. Like I love that about, like even Star Wars. Obviously, Star Wars inspires so many science fiction movies. I mean, it's that classic tale of good and evil and the dualities, but just the worlds within worlds. I love the fact that like they have spin-offs of stories that leads into stories, and if people are attracted to that character, you can kind of follow them for a while, and it's like more fluid like form of creativity that way. Like, and you kind of like even Lord of the Rings, right? You just kind of have that like. It's that world building stuff so that you can kind of share with people in different ways now at that space, because it is an exploration, right? It's like, it's kind of strange synergy, I guess is the word, between the fans and the people who are making the stuff, which is cool. And
what were some of the things that inspired you as a kid?
Oh man. I mean, I love superheroes, I really did. Like it's just so kind of corny, but I love Superman, like just Superman, like when I saw Christopher Reeves, he's not corny. I mean, it's awesome, right? But like,
he's awesome.
Not like, yeah, he's awesome. It's Superman, but like, it seems like the most basic, of all heroes to like, but he's like not, like I love what he represents. And when I was really little, the thing that struck me obviously was Christopher, the Christopher Reeves, the Superman one, and the Donner one. And, and just, as a kid, you watch that, and that was like you see him saving the helicopter and that song, you know what I mean? And it was just like, I got the Superman costume and I'm running around. I remember I punched a window because I thought I had superhero power. Mom's like, no more superhero costumes for you. Like, so when I, as a child, yeah, it was inspired by those things, comic books, and then it went from like the simple introduction of Superman. Obviously, he just kind of represents all good, right? So then it was like, it got into Batman, and like, Tim Burton's Batman came out, and I was just totally blown away by that. Like it was dark, and I'm getting older too, so I'm like, what was I, 11? So it was all like, yeah, he's like, and everything that Tim Burton makes is so cool and like edgy, and there's like this new style to it, and Jack Nicholson was just so scary as a Joker at the time. And like, I just remember loving that, like the imagery of him just being this hero, but it felt more real than all the other ones, like, at the time, like the Batmobile from that one was so awesome. Like the kind of vintage looking thing. And anyway, so, I remember when I was a kid, actually, this is a Sunflower Kid reference, or actually form of inspiration, but my dad, he's a police officer in Quincy, Massachusetts, or he's retired now. Sergeant Charles Santoro of the Quincy Police Department. So he's the best too. Anyway, so when I was a kid, he bought me for Christmas this Batman mask because I was so obsessed, and it was like, way too big for my head, so it was kind of like leaning off to the side a little bit, so I'd have to like stuff a newspaper in there to make it stay up. So, and so anyway, so he ended up. So in Sunflower Kid, this is where the story kind of comes into play. Like he's got this big kind of goofy mask that's like dripping off his face and tipped, but which is just kind of funny because that when I was a kid, because my dad was a cop too. I remember I was like, Dad, maybe you should just wear the Batman mask to work and like, be a superhero, because like you can do that.
Yeah,
that was just my logic back then. So I just kind of have always been, and then obviously Blade Runner. It's just like, what the hell? Like in your teens, like I remember seeing it on a VHS. Like my Uncle Gary had like a Blade Runner VHS, and it's like even putting it in the VHS, and it's all like staticky, and like that experience because. And that was like, that movie totally blew my mind. It was all the layers of texture and just how that guy uses light to just, cut through scenes, and the way he tells stories is amazing. Then obviously James Cameron's work, like Terminator 2. I mean, I was thinking it was like 15 when that came out, right? So I wasn't allowed to see the movie in the theater, right? Or whatever it was. And so we'd have to like sneak in to see Terminator, but that liquid metal guy coming out of the ground the first time you saw that. And I remember that was actually the movie that inspired me to get into visual effects. I was like, I remember going to this, I was on a road trip, and we stopped at some like Brookstones as a kid. And there was this magazine about like kind of creating visual effects for like Terminator. And I was like, whoa, there's a guy and his name is James Cameron. And he's like the guy who like builds this whole thing. Like, I want to do that. What?
Did you ever meet Spaz Williams?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, because he's the guy who created that at ILM.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And there's a documentary that just came out about him called Spaz, which is incredible because he's kind of an amazing. So it was just shown at South by Southwest, but yeah, I totally get it. It was amazing. Yeah. It was a really,
talk
really
talk about development though. Like look at what goes into making Terminator 2 back then. Like all of those practical sculptures and all. Like, where is that stuff? Like what? That's beautiful artwork that like artists bled for. Trust me, I've been in those trenches. I worked on VFX movies. There's like, that's another thing. It's like I'm a champion of the VFX like community as well, because like I feel like there's this kind of crappy narrative floating around about like
terrible.
You just throw $1 at a movie or money at a movie, and then a movie's just gonna have VFX, and you kind of like whatever. It's just money, but it's not just that. It's like there's just tons of dudes behind every one of those dragons that you've seen out there putting in the hours to try to make that thing look bitchin'. You know what I mean? Right, so like, like the fire dynamics and the, like all the, you look at like Lord of the Rings and you see the like fields of coins and like all that stuff. It's like, so, it's like, I just respect all the work that they put into it. I don't even think they get enough credit. I think there should just be like, and that's what's so cool about the NFT space is like those dudes, you don't have to be, all you VFX dudes out there, you don't have to be that just that name at the end of the credits anymore. Like if you want to make a thing, use the thing that you've been building and make a thing, like there's a time right now to kind of like disrupt everything. Like your value you're worth a lot more than you think as an artist in this world right now. And you have to know that, like, just know that. So
That's awesome.
Sorry.
Well, listen, your enthusiasm is intoxicating, and I'm very excited about that. And so this is really amazing stuff you're doing, and I think it's truly incredible. You seem like you're always jumping on some you are on the next idea constantly, and you're constantly moving forward and you're doing things. What is the thing you're looking forward to right now? What's your next big thing?
I'm what I'm looking forward to? I love just having this conversation. I'm like this is a great conversation. I'm like actually living in the moment, and it's like kind of the strange first time. Not the first time, but like I feel like I'm on this kind of wave of just feeling surrounded by inspiration. And so where this is going, like where do I want it to go? Like it's like I feel like it's right here, and it's super exciting, and I have this really good feeling that it's going to move forward in strange and weird, beautiful ways. And, and I'm just hoping that, everybody else kind of feels the same way at some point, because I think that the NFT space has a lot to offer the world, to be honest. Yeah, it's not just glowing golden skulls anymore. There's like, I'm all about that Web 5.
I like it. Well, cool. Well, listen, Matteo, it's been an amazing conversation. I'm very excited about it. We'll after this, we'll get links from you, and we'll put all those links up on your podcast page so that people can check out all the amazing projects. Sunflower Kid is incredible. It's beautiful, and I love what it's all about. And I know how much you probably have exciting to get SIFT out of your brain and out onto the pixels and in front of everyone out there.
It's actively happening right now.
It's happening right now. Yeah.
Yeah. You got tombstones, 100 tombstones they're available on Foundation. It's like, and 100 of those are all, it's like, if you get in on that community, I have the SIFT concept labs called the Cyber Lab, and it's going to be like this laboratory of concept experimentation. And you get to have, be a part of that community and start putting brick down, after brick and, make a thing, right? That's the goal. So
you have a Discord as well, I'm assuming, or?
Yeah, I just set up the Discord, and I'm trying to get it. You know what I mean? You gotta get the Discord. You gotta have the website. You gotta have the roadmap.
The Twitter account. The roadmap.
At the same time, it's like, at the same time, are there rules to this? Do you need to have all those things, or is it a little bit more like, I don't know. It's like. But I'm actively kind of checking all the marks off, and I got people out there like Ben Noble, who's been super supportive. Another dude, like, the kid is like, he's got a great mind and opinion about things. And, it's just like, I don't know, just like I said, the community is awesome. So like, I definitely like, I'm really grateful for that part as well. I don't want that to go unrecognized. It's the people that I met at all these like events too. I'm sure you felt it too. It's just the conversations that are had at these things feels kind of special. And so I'm just excited to be a part of it. So yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you being on, and good luck with everything. And we're very excited to see SIFT when it'll be out for sure.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.